A big data point this morning that is a great sign for Trumponomics. Welcome to the Big Money Show. I'm Taylor Riggs, along with my co-hosts, Lydia Hu, Lou Basenese, Jackie DeAngelis, and with us for the entire hour, Forbes Media Chairman and Editor-in-Chief, Steve Forbes. Great to have you.
Good to be here. Thank you.
So also in this GDP report, we get a measure of corporate profits, Lou, and that's where I go to you. Corporate profits rose 4.2% in the third quarter, the most this year. A measure of after-tax profits for non-financial firms, a proxy for margins. It's tightened this year, but it's well above levels that prevailed from the 1950s all the way to the pandemic. So this looks like also companies, profit margin stocks, the S&P 500 are benefiting as well.
Yeah,
Your
earnings
thoughts?
ultimately drive share prices, right? And we're seeing that happen in the market right now. If you look at this, I'm not surprised, though. Last quarter alone, S&P 500 profit margins were about 13.1%. We haven't had that. But I see a headline like this. I'm like Jackie. I don't see anything bad in it. I want to look for the anomaly, right? And I go into the data, and you look at personal consumption, right? That spending. Were there one-time purchases that boosted this number? No. It was actually non-durable goods that accounted for the majority of it. Defense spending up 5.8%. The one thing that's interesting to me, I got to give Larry Kudlow kudos because he's out there saying we could get to 5% GDP growth in 2026. Here's the thing. Real estate, residential real estate investment was down 5.1% for the second quarter in a row. It dragged total GDP down 0.2%. If we figure out real estate, add that back, now we're at 4.5%, 5%, it's attainable. So, you talked about consumer sentiment. I think sentiment lags reality, right? People say something, but they do differently. They're spending. Could we get more money in their pockets in 2026? I think that's the president's main goal, and it's going to happen.
But you guys, the FDA has approved a pill for their form of Wegovy. Lou, I'm going to have you take over while I cough. It's giving them a head start over Eli Lilly. Eli Lilly is waiting for FDA approval.
Eli Lilly is waiting for their FDA approval here. This is obviously patient compliance. It's contagious. Patient compliance is the big key here for weight loss drugs, right? Is everyone going to take their weekly shots? The pills are not as effective if you think about scientifically something that you have to digest in your system reduces the amount of dosage that gets to you, but they're effective enough. They're helping people. So I think you'll see both a combination. People that just can't take shots will take the pill.
Is Eli Lilly behind?
No, Eli Lilly's not behind. I'd argue I'm a Eli Lilly shareholder here, so I'm bullish on this. But Novo Nordisk trades very cheaply at about 13 times earnings. So people love this as a value stock. They were the first mover in this GLP-1 market. This is not about a single drug. It's about a single theme and story that's going to expand. So great on Novo Nordisk to get to market first with this. I think you'll see people transition off of Ozempic and Wegovy after weight loss into the pill because it's easier to
I disagree. So I've actually seen the shots. They're really easy. They sort of just go into this little fat spot on your stomach there. The needle is not that big. They're very, very easy to do. And so if they're more effective in injection form because it's released into your bloodstream versus digesting a pill, I don't know why you would want to necessarily take a pill. And for those who do care about things like going through your kidneys processing and whatnot.
Some people, they're using this now coming off, like Eli Lilly last week announced their pill being used after Ozempic or Wegovy or Zepbound. So it's just a
more
transition.
maintenance.
More maintenance. After you've lost the weight, it's an easy way to keep that down without having to, and it's, once a week, once every other week.
All right, let's take a big moment. Lou? You've been named, I believe, a Fox Business contributor. We're so happy to have you as part of the Fox family.
No, just an honor. It's kind of surreal and just thankful to be part of the team here.
Aw, we're glad to have you.
Great to have
you.
We let you sneak in somehow.
Yeah.
Just kidding. We're happy to have you.
So, Lou, I would ask you to take out your crystal ball and say, is this potential for automation in finance is it delayed? Is it not on the timeline track that we're looking at per se? Should we be expecting this to happen? Or is it going to be paired with automation that is then, doing certain aspects of the function, but is managed by humans? So net, you might not see as big of a loss as you expect.
My magic 8 ball doesn't have that many choices on there for me to go to. But no, I would say this. I think what's interesting is think about this like Excel. Excel didn't replace and take away jobs. It was a force multiplier, not a pink slip generator. And I think that's what we're seeing here is AI is being applied in a lot of ways across Wall Street and finance to simplify things, to automate things, to allow employees that are there to be more productive, to do things to create more value with the time that they have. And that's the unit of time is really what the key resource is in finance. So I'm not surprised by this. I think it's become an excuse of this era when you see job layoffs and firing, like we had some recent tech ones, and it's just easy to throw everything out with the baby with the bathwater and say, hey, it's AI's fault. We're replacing these jobs because of AI.
Yeah.
And really, it's not. It's like we saw in the COVID era when they labeled any death was a COVID death, right? It's like, hey, that's an easy excuse. So.
And we're not seeing the dramatic changes. There's no reason to panic at the moment. But that's why I appreciate, the Trump administration is keeping a very big open mind and making sure that the regulatory framework is in place that we can develop and evolve with AI and still lead.
I think the counterpoint to that, though, is if profit margins stay higher, that leaves more capital at the end of the day, the end of the year, to reinvest and to grow. And when you scale, you naturally have to hire incremental employees to go from $1 billion in revenue to $2 billion. You can't just keep that at a steady state.
But you might be hiring some and not others.
Correct.
The types of jobs might be.
But you're talking about the expected jobs.
Well,
And they weren't for real to begin with.
I'm with Steve Forbes on this, that, we've talked about 100 years ago, this job didn't exist because televisions didn't exist.
Right.
Once they created the technology that allowed for a radio and a TV, this became a job. So I am hopeful that AI will create jobs that we can't even perceive today because that technology doesn't exist, and it will allow people
if you look at the
move
history of innovation, every major innovation for the last 200 years, and you chart that alongside total jobs in the United States and globally, it goes up. There's small dips, but it goes up and to the right like the stock market.
I'll just put a bow on it and put it to bed this way and say one of the things that I've also noticed in the practical application of AI with call centers, for example.
Yeah.
When you call, you're not getting rerouted to a foreign call center anymore. If it is eating somebody's lunch, it's eating a foreign employee that we were outsourcing to because they were cheaper than paying somebody in this country to do that call center job. The service was subpar, and so now you've got a bot doing it, and as long as, the fact pattern doesn't go awry, they generally are doing a pretty good job. So that's interesting,
with
too.
the election season coming, people are going to ask, can AI replace Congress? But that's just another subject.
Maybe we're in favor of that one.
You might be in favor of it, but we will not go there. But also on the defense side of things, to place us back on the forefront as a leader, a global leader, because we were really losing our place in that regard under Joe Biden. And so, of course, the critics are going to be out there. They're going to criticize the ships. They're going to say that, it's all about having the Trump name on them and that this is about him and it's somehow not about the Navy or about our defense systems. But, the naysayers will always be there. I just look at those numbers and say, thank God somebody is addressing this.
Yeah, it's peace through strength, and there's strength in numbers. And the reality is the shipbuilding timelines don't match up with the increase in geopolitical risk, right? 10 to 15 years to build a ship. You have to always be building, to Steve's point. You should have a funding. We saw it in the GDP report, 5.8% increase in defense spending. That should be continuous to make sure that we always have strength in numbers to defend and prevent.
And just think about how ridiculous it is to rely on your enemies and your adversaries to supply you with your defense ships. I mean, it just is mind-boggling that anybody in power thought that that was okay.
Well, there
knows little or nothing about shipbuilding, revolutionizes shipbuilding. So we built so-called 3,000 Liberty ships during the war to ship freight around the world to fight the war. So you need outsiders who bring new thinking to get these things done.
Do you think there's a regulatory roadblock to new innovation because of all the hurdles you have to
I know. Look at Palantir.
And that's
Look at
why.
Palantir.
Yeah, but Palantir's been around over a decade now, right?
Yeah,
so I think
but Palantir
hard
had to break in.
Yeah.
And so you have to have an environment to break in. One of the things, the only way you get things done in the Defense Department often is go what they used to call skunk works. You just go around the whole system and go into the private sector. So you need to have that system where you invite startups, you invite high-tech companies to come in, think new ways, like Henry Kaiser did.
So, but that's a way to instead of telling, the leader of the free world shouldn't be telling the free markets how to operate. Use the Department of Energy, the Department of Defense grants to innovate and use that government funding as opposed to telling CEOs how to allocate capital. He can, after he retires from the presidency, he can go back to running companies and doing that. I just am like Brian. I don't want the government and you getting in the middle of capital allocation decisions.
Create the right environment, and these things will take care of themselves. But also lowered the number of guns in New York, because you knew if you were caught with a gun, you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
So again, enforcement is the key. Start with the little things. The broken window theory
Yep.
Yeah, well,
showed it
here's what
was
stands
real.
out to me. These car makers settled. Why would you settle?
Why would you settle?
But you look at it. What was the dollar amount? $9 million. It's easier to pay $9 million to make this problem go away in the headlines because they knew they would spend more than that in litigation. But let's fast forward 3 months, 6 months, 12 months from now. Are the carjackings done? The thefts down? Probably not. So this is going to be another failed experiment by the Democratic Socialists saying we're going to.
And that's why some companies in the past, like Merck, if you filed a class action suit, they went to every single case and fought it tooth and nail if they felt they're in the right. Those companies should have done that. May have cost in the short term, but the trial lawyers would know. They know you go against them, you're not going to get an easy settlement, so they go somewhere else.
Right.
Like a bullet.
Factories don't pop up overnight. If they don't, the plan is failing. But undoing 50 years of economic orthodoxy was never going to be instant. And for the first time in a long time, America may have stopped playing by rules that were written by people overseas.
By the way,
we're calling our own shots.
You
here.
were lighted over a lot.
What?
Well, Liberation Day tariffs, what were they?
Oh, super high.
Yeah.
What are they now?
Super low.
Well,
but Jackie was
As usual, you didn't let me finish.
Hey, Jackie was spot on. She was the first one I heard say on air that this is the president's big stick, and that's exactly what it was.
Which is what?
Just to
The
threaten
Peter
having
Navarro
leverage. Yeah.
list of tariffs that were meant to
It was
scare
here,
everybody.
and it imploded.
They scared the stock market. They
scared Trump.
the bond market.
They scared Trump.
Maybe if he believed they were real, they scared him too. But the end result ended up being okay. Inflation at 2%, tariff revenue of on track to $300 billion.
This reminds me of the debate over the death penalty, and I'll tell you why. People
I don't know where you're going
People
here,
say,
this one.
well, I'm going to tell you, and I'll educate you all. People say the death penalty doesn't work because in some states with the death penalty, you have a higher rate of murder, right? But what you don't know is where the death penalty deterred people, because no one's going to stand up and say,
I almost did it.
oh, I was going to kill someone. And it's the same thing. We're saying we're getting 4% growth, which is amazing. And there's a lot of good stuff in the big, beautiful budget that contributed to that, my view. But you don't know that we would have had 6% growth if we didn't have all that BS with the tariffs. We just don't know. And it is.
You really
and it goes
don't know.
on.
Yeah,
Hold on,
that
I
we
gotta
got to
challenge
push
that
back
a little.
there.
Let me push back.
That's a stretch.
Really?
Yes.
Hold on. How do you not
Here's
know?
why.
How do you know that?
Here's why.
What do you
Would
know?
we have gotten $17 trillion in foreign direct investment in the United States without the big
Correct.
stick?
Yes.
Without the big stick.
Most of them were already
so
here.
what would the lever that President Trump could have pulled to facilitate or catalyze
They were
that
already
happen?
coming. Look at each one of them.
Nah,
I
don't
disagree.
come on.
I'm sorry. I strongly disagree.
By the way, there's something called Google. Look it up. I'm not kidding you. I looked it up.
Saudi Arabia was cutting checks.
Yeah, they want to do business with us. They always have.
On the scale that they're doing it now?
But because of tariffs?
No, but just because of his
Well, wait a
foreign
second.
policy in
I think
general,
that's a
bringing
whole-
countries to the
you're
table.
conflating foreign policy with tariffs. I mean, I know there is some overlap, but we're talking apples and oranges here. Saudi Arabia wants a relationship with us desperately. So does Abu Dhabi. So do all those modernistic Arab states, and there's a reason why they want to invest, and plus they got a ton of money.
Well, no, they need to diversify outside
They
of
need
oil
to
because
diversify
they have to
oil,
continue. Yeah.
and we're the place to do it. And by the way, they're very pro-Western. I mean, we can have a whole discussion about that. I know this because Larry Ellison lured the Saudis in for his bid for Warner Brothers for Paramount because he believes they're a modernistic society and they have a good relationship with the White House. But that's different than tariffs. And again, will the other stuff outweigh the tariffs?
Yes.
Well, I think that's the difficult.
I think
there's
so.
many
I hope
variables
so.
that get
Yes,
thrown in here.
yeah.
But if you actually look, the impact
There's
of
a
the
lot
tariffs.
and by the way,
when you
does
did-
AI
Yes.
push you because it has its enormous productivity gains? I say yes. Does it pull you back because it leads to some degree of unemployment? Yes. So this is like a dynamic thing, and you just kind of want this because, by the way, you can't pay down the deficit, given the fact that Trump hasn't cut really anything in this administration, without 4% growth.
No, you need to grow out of it. Yeah. But this is one of those things that we can look back, and I'm just not going to concede that Liberation Day was a bad move.
Well, if it was so good, why did they reverse it?
It was a great, bold opening move.
Their opening offer.
It was
And then
the
no one
opening
bought on
offer.
debt for 3 days.
I also think timing-wise, we were questioning why he did that as soon as he basically entered the White House.
Yeah.
One of the reasons he did it was because of how it's played out, how the bill has played out, how it's set us up to, with the growth numbers that we're seeing, to go into 2026 when he expects to see even higher growth. and more productivity, and people are supposed to feel the benefits of it as well. I know in some ways we'll discount the tariff revenue. It's more than $200 billion so far, and he's spent it 5 ways to Sunday. I'm not really sure exactly what's going to happen with that money.
I mean, I don't.
but it's still not insignificant.
Why doesn't the budget deficit ever change if we keep? I mean, they keep touting these numbers that are coming in, and then I keep Googling what is the U.S. budget, and it's the same. I mean,
well, they're never going to change. We know it's runaway spending. You got to outgrow it. But to your point, he had to come up with an opening move that really reordered the economy quickly because he knew it would take time for any tax cuts to implement
That did not reorder the economy.
I think it absolutely.
It did not. It had no impact other than negative. I mean, to reorder the economy. You know what reorder the economy?
Yeah.
Give me the data point.
Extending. There's no data. There's no data that it
that's an
reordered.
easy argument to make.
No, but there's no. What's your data that it reordered?
My data point. Look at the GDP prints for the last 2 quarters: 3.8%, 4.3%.
And that's because of tariffs.
No,
You're the
I'm
first
saying
person I heard that blames.
No,
that
it's the reorganization prompted by the tariffs.
No, it's the big beautiful bill that gives us all these tax incentives.
100% agree with that.
And by the way, it's deregulation. It's AI. It's not. Putting.
I'm not saying it's tariffs
charging
only.
$15 more for baby seats made in China.
I
Trust me on this.
understand. I think there is, and Jackie, we've talked about this. Growth is the best indicator to climb the socioeconomic ladder. 4.3% growth is great because that means we're all getting wealthier. Was tariffs a little bit of a headwind? Absolutely. But I think that means that we're looking at tariffs only from a pure economic angle. And I think Trump is also looking at tariffs about what does it mean for the small town in the Midwest where that town is totally desolate, totally deserted, there's no jobs, and you have a family growing up there that's trying to wonder, what does a job in this community look like for me 10 years from now? I could outsource for a cheap crap TV in China and have it made for half the price.
You don't know that tariffs are bringing back jobs to these towns.
So politically, it was an America First policy for middle America.
It was good.
Guys, I think he wanted to reestablish who was boss when he was dealing with other leaders, and he did that. People were terrified.
You could do that when you don't need foreigners to buy your debt. And I think that's another issue. I covered the bond market my entire career. I'm like a bond geek when it comes to this sort of stuff. And I never saw what I saw that night after Liberation Day.
Oh, you're right.
The interest rates going nuts. People someone was blowing out our debt. It looked like it was either Japan. I heard it wasn't China, it was Japan.
China, yeah.
I mean, that is not what you want. You can't have, by the way, people don't buy your debt. Interest rates go up. Forget about all the tax
I think
incentives
people
in
will
a big,
always
beautiful
buy our
bill.
debt because we have the deepest, most liquid capital markets in the world, and we have the full faith and credit of the United States.
Yet gold is surging, right? So
But that's our interest rate cut bet, right?
I think he might have seen that his starting offer was a little too hard. And then he just backed off of it, and things rebalanced a little bit.
I think so. And he backed off a lot. I mean, I think that's the good happen. It's going to be this is going to happen up until January 21st. Yeah. That's the extended tender deadline. So just stay tuned.
I've argued against Netflix actually getting this because I think it eliminates choice for consumers. So you think about this.
Well, it is an antitrust problem, right?
Yes.
You're layering horizontally two big streamers, right?
But if you look at this, it's the equivalent of Alphabet, which owns internet advertising, owning all the websites then, because Netflix here would get primarily, 30 to 40% of the content that's created. So past content, current content, they would have a say over what's funded future content. And because they have to use so much debt, it's inevitably going to lead them to raise prices on consumers.
Of course.
So, and I think it's the biggest antitrust concern.
I'm less compelled. I think it's less compelling from the antitrust standpoint because people like streaming. Okay, so just so you know, and you got to pay for it. There's other streamers out there. I think where I don't understand is what investor would say no to cash.
Well, tell me about that.
And take a flyer on CNN selling for $5 or $4.
No, cash offers are always superior, right? You want to take it; it's guaranteed. You don't want to have risk in shares or giving.
So why aren't they going with the Paramount deal if they've repeatedly said cash is king?
Well, we should point out that of the 2.6 billion shares, about 400,000 have tendered to Paramount. Mm-hmm. That was before Larry Ellison's, thing, his guarantee. I think a lot of people are waiting to see if they up the bid. I mean, Zasloff played this brilliantly because if he gets $33 cash for that company, just think, a stock that was traded at $7.50 like sometime last year is now
it's a great win for shareholders. I think the concern is foreign investors as well. We saw this play out with Forbes originally as well too. That there was big offers.
But they're silent, are they not?
Say again.
like the foreign investors, like Saudi Arabia, aren't they silent? They've given up.
Listen, we just sat here and said how modernistic the Saudis are, the Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund, PIF. I mean, they're major players in the world of finance. These are not like, this is not Iran that we're dealing with. They're modernistic. They like America. There is.
I wouldn't go that far.
But Saudi Arabia doesn't like America.
That they're like America.
No, they like America.
Okay. They're not that modernistic either when you really go and see what their life looks like.
Saudi Arabia is pretty modernistic. You don't think Doha is a modernistic city?
Doha is not Saudi Arabia.
No, but that's the other sovereign wealth fund that's in there. I mean, I think those kingdoms in the Middle East are listen, they're the center of the Abraham Accords. This is what Trump wants to build as a bulwark against the sort of Iranian terrorist networks.
I'm a consumer.
But as a companion for friendship. And experts warn that some large language models have gotten so good at mimicking human response that it's growing easier and easier for kids to forget that they're talking to a robot. Lou, I look at you because, there's several of us that are parents up here, and this is really troubling. It makes me wonder, why do we need these chatbots to even simulate, human-like connections for children? And what concerns does that raise for you?
It raises huge concerns. Bring back pen pals where you actually write physical letters. Take the devices away and send your kids outside and tell them they can't come back in until they're playing outside. I think this is hugely an issue that's a parenting, right? I think a lot of parents want to look to the government to regulate social media. It's on us. It's our responsibility to make sure our kids are well equipped as they go out into the world. And if you look at any of the data from social media, for preteen girls especially, it's extremely destructive on mental health. Is it any surprise that AI chatbots are filling a void that should not be filled by technology? I think now, armed with this data, you have to find ways to combat letting them use that. It's not one of those, rule with an iron fist. It's more get them in situations where they're actually interacting with other people and kids.
Sorry, just to clarify, so you think, I agree with you, I think it is on the parents to police this vigilantly, AI chatbot use with minors, but you don't think that the government should play any role in setting up guardrails?
No, I think you should. The government should have, the Communication Decency Act, Section 230, they should have made these platforms liable for the content that is distributed on them. You should do this with AI chatbots to protect the young and the innocent.
By the way, there would be no innovation if you
agree, but I would rather
Just pause for a second, because I'm fascinated by this. OpenAI and Microsoft are being sued. This man who was mentally ill, the claim is that he was encouraged by a chatbot to kill his mother and then to kill himself. So this is where the technology can potentially go awry. We were talking in the break about the rhinovirus too and mental illness, and so there's a lot there. I'm talking about a case regarding a 56-year-old man who killed his mother, the estate, and then killed himself by suicide, and the estate is now bringing the suit on OpenAI and Microsoft.
Well, think if it was able to manipulate a 56-year-old man, think about what it could do to you.
Wait a second, he might have been nuts.
They say he was mentally ill.
All that to say, I'm 100% with you. We as parents can't shuck the responsibility onto the state.
But the Bible has inspired, as I said.
We are just moments away from Logan Paul joining us any moment here on set. Super excited for that conversation, but we are also super excited for some of these records that we have here. Look, you're looking at record on gold, silver, copper. You're looking at a record on the S&P 500, Lou, of 69.05. Start with that, and then we'll tie in the industrial metals.
Said at the beginning of the show, stock prices ultimately follow earnings. Earnings forecasts heading into 2026 just keep getting better. And analysts were woefully underestimating in 2025. They expected like 6 or 7% earnings growth the last 3 quarters. We got north of 10%. I think we have the stages set with the GDP growth number we got today, with, as Charlie was espousing before, the president's tax policies, spending policies, investment policies coming into play in 2026. More highs ahead for the S&P 500.
How did you get into investing in these collectible cards?
Someone gave me way too much money as an adult. And as a kid who grew up playing the game, I was like, oh, wow, there's a trading card game here, and I can spend my entire net worth on it. And I did that with this card.
Interesting. So if someone's new to this space, that's never been, this is an asset class that is completely foreign to most investors. Where would you start? We obviously can't start with one of those.
Yeah. Man, go to your local card shop. Go on eBay. Buy a card that you think looks cool or that you have a connection with. That's what I did. I love Pokemon more than anything. I have one tattoo on my body. It's a Squirtle. I got it before I even started.
What's a Squirtle?
Squirtle's a water type. He's a starter Pokemon.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
How much did you
Sorry.
pay for that card?
I'm dating myself.
It's fine.
How much did you pay for it, and how much is it worth?
Yeah, great question. I paid $5.3 million for this card.
Wow.
I set a Guinness World Record for the most expensive Pokemon card ever sold back in 2022 after I wore it out to my WrestleMania debut around my neck like this. And your question, how much is it worth? We will see. I don't know. I am finally, after years of Ken Golden convincing me to sell this thing at auction, I'm sending it to auction this February. And so we're going to see what it goes for. But I think being the rarest, most valuable card in the world, there's only one of them, one in a PSA 10. You see the label up there, meaning it's perfect. Could go. I don't want to say it. It's whatever someone's willing to. I like to invest in the best of the best.
Right.
The top in the asset class. I bought a Wayne Gretzky final championship game hockey stick. There's only one Wayne Gretzky.
Yes, he's talking about limited
amazing.
supply. Beanie Babies, there was unlimited supply.
Yes.
Do you view any of these purchases, these collectibles, as legacies where you're going to pass them down to your new child? Or do you say, like, this is purely an investment?
I do. I would love if my daughter was into Pokemon, but my wife is like, you can't force that on her. I'm like, I know. And
great.
we just had a thing where she chose her starter Pokemon. Squirtle was an option. I know you don't know Squirtle.
I'm going to look it up after
Well,
this.
but it was a big deal for me. And, you know, I'm a collector, and if she wants some of the things that I have that I think will be worth, you know, multiples of what they are today, I'd be more than happy to pass them down. We were athletes first, and then boxing was just something like we fell in love with. Like, dude, my brother wanted to be a Navy SEAL, like, and go like fight for the country.
And how do you transition to that, to wrestling, right? I was at WrestleMania 4. I think you got your start at 38, so I'm a little bit older.
Yeah.
Arguably, I think that's probably one of the hardest sports. Would you agree with that?
I would totally agree. I was asked this question this morning: what's harder, boxing, Floyd Mayweather, or wrestling? I've done both. Wrestling, by far.
And why is that?
You have to use every part of your mind and body. Wrestling is one of the most difficult things I've ever done. I have so much respect for the craft, which is why I've given so much of my life to it. I'm now a full-time wrestler, and I honestly believe I was born to be a wrestler.
Well, you have an incredible energy. We're so glad that
Thank
you
you.
came. I'm so glad I got to see the Pokemon card. We'll see what it auctions for. Logan Paul, thank you. And just going to thank
great.
Charlie
Thanks.
Gasparino for the hour as well. Great to have you all with us.